It's time to walk the talk, we say. You committed a crime all those years back, but the victims are yet to be compensated and the culprits yet to be punished. A sorry is not enough. You need to pay up. And leading that charge is Barbados. Their Prime Minister is in the UK right now. Her name is Mia Mottley. And I must say, she's done her homework. She did not just make an appeal for reparations, she came with an exact figure. $4.9 trillion. That's how much she wants European countries to pay Barbados, $4.9 trillion. Most of it is for slavery. Around 450,000 slaves were trafficked to Barbados. Only 375,000 made it alive, and the rest, they died at sea. Around 30,000 slaves died working on the plantations. They died working for European powers. So Barbados wants the UK to pay up.
Now, the people of Barbados are demanding for reparations from the British because the British colonized them. As an African who is watching this video, or as a black people, or any other race which is watching this video, what is the purpose of reparations? And on what grounds should reparations apply? I want us to watch this video while observing how the people of Barbados are asking for reparations from the colonizers who are the British. And then I'll give you my thoughts towards the end of the video, where we will have a critical analysis. Without further ado, let's dive into this video.
But where did the 4.9 trillion come from? A report published by the Brattle Group. It's a consulting company based in the US. It specializes in complex calculations like how much do European countries owe for slavery? The numbers will surprise you. The UK owes $24 trillion to 14 countries. Barbados is one of them, $24 trillion for the UK. Spain, $17 trillion. France, $9 trillion. And the Netherlands, $4.8 trillion. Now, these numbers may sound like a lot. 24 trillion is 8 times the UK's national GDP. 17 trillion is 12 times the Spanish GDP. So how can these claims be realistic? Well, the Barbados Prime Minister has an answer. She says, don't take them out of context. This wealth was accumulated over decades and centuries. If you think like that, the numbers are small. And we agree. Here in India, colonial reparations are a hot topic. A couple of years back, the foreign minister also spoke about it. He said Britain looted $45 trillion from India. Imagine that, $45 trillion taken away. That's 13 times India's current GDP. And colonialism does not just take away money. It takes away confidence, it takes away time, and it takes away self-respect. Sometimes it can take decades to regain those. So if anything, 45 trillion is too less. Now, coming back to Barbados, their Prime Minister took charge in 2018, and since then, she's been campaigning for reparations. She's also hosted a summit in July this year, a summit for reparations. A number of African and Caribbean nations attended the summit. They agreed on the demand for reparations. And last month, they followed up on it. The African Union and Caribbean nations created a joint fund. We're talking about 75 countries in total. They've asked European nations to pour money into this fund. But do not expect anyone to actually do it. Most former colonial powers use the same strategy. They will admit that colonialism was wrong. They will say it was a mistake. But they won't do the two things that really matter: apologize and pay. They don't do it. Just look at Britain. King Charles was supposed to be the progressive king. Last year, he gave a landmark speech at the Commonwealth meeting. He said, it's time to acknowledge the impact of slavery. And that speech is what spurred Barbados. Their Prime Minister thought apology and reparations would follow. And she was wrong. Charles is yet to apologize. So is his Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak.
I want to ask the Prime Minister today if he will do what Bernie Grant asked all those years ago, what I have asked and what countless others have asked since, and offer a full and meaningful apology for our country's role in slavery and colonialism and commit to reparatory justice.
Minister. No, Mr. Speaker. What I think our focus should now be on doing is, of course, understanding our history in all its parts, not running away from it, but right now making sure that we have a society which is inclusive and tolerant of people from all backgrounds. That's something that we on this House side of the House are committed to doing and will continue to deliver, but trying to unpick our history is not the right way forward and is not something that we will focus our energies on.
Do you see the problem? They can't even apologize for their crimes. How can we expect them to pay trillions of dollars? As things stand, it's impossible, which is why former colonies are moving on themselves, including Barbados. In 2021, they parted ways with the monarchy. Barbados declared itself a republic. Antigua and Barbuda are doing the same. Their government has announced a referendum. Chances are the people will reject the British monarchy. And this process will continue. Younger generations will demand a reset. But that alone does not acquit these European powers. They're all democracies. All of them talk about the rule of law. Well, it's time to walk the talk, we say. You committed a crime all those years back. But the victims are yet to be compensated and the culprits yet to be punished.
I have a question. A question that I want to ask you first before we start. Do you think we need reparations as Africans? And do you think the West needs to pay Africans reparations? This is a very, very long story. It's deep. It's not something which is on the surface, you know? Because recently we've seen the Prince Charles of UK. He came to Kenya the other day, and when he came and he apologized particularly to those freedom fighters, and he also apologized to the Mau Mau community. We saw many Kenyans who fought for independence, some of whom are still alive, came over, and some of them were paid, you know. And we saw the German president. He went to Tanzania and he met the president, Mama Suluhu Hassan. She apologized on behalf of the German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck during those times, because it was of Otto von Bismarck who started all these things of scramble and partitioning. He made it well planned, you know. So this issue of reparations, how is it? Do we deserve reparations? Or should they pay reparations? What's the morality behind all this? That's a very, very important question. To me, I believe that when justice is to be served, justice requires somebody to acknowledge they are guilty, or someone to show them you are guilty. And if you are guilty, you brought some harm to a particular people. And when you brought harm to these people, you have to reconcile. You have to make some restorations. To me, I'm thinking that reparations are a form of restoration. Yes, because we have a lot of African artifacts, African goods, African products that were smuggled outside Africa, taken over to Europe and to other Western countries. Now, here's what you need to consider. The questions of whether colonizers should pay reparations to the descendants of those they oppressed is a contentious and a complex issue. You know, colonization is characterized by exploitation, displacement, and cultural erasure. It has had enduring impact on indigenous peoples and communities of color all around the world. Now, we are going to explore the moral, the historical, and the practical arguments for why colonizers should pay reparations, providing an in-depth analysis, discussion, and real-life example to support the case of why the West should pay reparations, and why countries of Africa or other countries outside Africa which were colonized are rightful in demanding for reparations. First of all is this moral imperative for reparations. At the heart of the argument for reparations, it lies a moral imperative to rectify past injustices and uphold principles of justice and equality. Colonization resulted in the systemic subjugation and exploitation of indigenous peoples and communities of color, depriving them of their land, resources, and autonomy. These historical injustices cannot be ignored or brushed aside, and reparations offer a tangible way to acknowledge the wrongs of the past and work towards healing and reconciliation. Now, that is the moral imperative. We cannot just turn our backs to bad things which people did. Desmond Tutu places it very well, the late Desmond Tutu of South Africa. He says that if you turn your back on someone who is hurting, or you try to ignore something which you see, this is clearly wrong, you are as equal, you are equally guilty as the one who is causing the harm. That is what Desmond Tutu said. And this is why I think the moral imperative of why they should pay reparation should come number one. It's morally wrong to cause harm and colonize and slavery. I don't need to discuss the side effects or how it was implemented. That's another video, that's another story. Now, let's move to the historical context and the legacies of colonization. The legacy of colonization continues to reverberate through generation, manifesting in persistent economic, social, and cultural disparities. Indigenous people and communities of color face disproportionate rates of poverty, unemployment, and incarceration as a direct result of historical injustices perpetrated by colonizers. Moreover, colonization led to the erasure of indigenous cultures, languages, and traditions, further exacerbating the trauma and loss experienced by affected communities. Now, practical consideration and examples of reparations. Reparations does not have to be money only. I believe reparation should not be money only. Reparation first comes when you acknowledge you did wrong. Just accept, I made wrong to these people, and I have to pay for the wrong thing that I did. You know? Now, reparations takes many forms, ranging from financial compensation to land restitution to investment in education and healthcare, and many, many more examples. But it first starts with what? It first starts with acknowledging you are at stake. Example of successful reparation efforts can be found around the world. It includes the Treaty of Waitangi Settlement in New Zealand. I told you, it's not about Africa only, it's about the whole world, people who faced colonization. Now, an example is the Treaty of Waitangi Settlement in New Zealand. The land restitution program in South Africa, which Julius Malema has been fighting for the land to be returned back to the original owners. Julius Malema has been fighting for land restitution to the black people, you know. And we also have another example, which is the compensation payment to Japanese Americans who were sufferers during the World War II in the United States of America. This initiative demonstrates that reparations are not only feasible, but also effective in addressing the lasting impacts of colonization and promoting healing and reconciliation. You know, I think Africans deserve reparations, just like any other person deserves reparations. We are rightful in asking for reparations because we didn't go to colonize no one. They came to colonize us. It wasn't just colonization. A lot of land was taken. A lot of land, prime, not just land, prime lands in Kenya were taken. Even here in Kenya, up to this date, we still suffer the consequences of colonization, you know. The best lands are belonging to those white families. And when some of them, when they left, they went away during the independence, these lands were grabbed by the politicians. You find a single politician has a very, very large piece of land. Even the place I'm sitting in right now, it once belonged to the first president of Kenya, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. This place I'm sitting right now, but the government took it back. And now here, it's called Kenyatta University. You see, it has its name, Kenyatta, and his name was Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, and this is Kenyatta University. So after the colonizer left, another colonizer came in. The colonizer, we share the same skin, same hair, same language, same food, same everything. He came in, you know. And now, reparations should not only be paid by the white person. The black person who also was given back that stolen property should give it back to the rightful people. Reparation is not only about white to black. It can also be black to black. It does not have to be white to black, no. In fact, black people are making other black people suffer so much. Suffer. Black to black. people suffering so much? Why should you suffer in the hands of somebody who looks like you? It is understandable if you suffer from somebody who does not look like you. People don't have land, people are suffering lands, but somebody so big, having so much big land, not just one person, many of them all over the country, and yet people are suffering of this land. Reparations should be paid. Barbados is okay with asking for reparations, and I agree with the Barbados people. They should ask for reparations, you know. Now let us conclude. The case for reparation rests on moral, historical and practical grounds. Colonizers have a responsibility to acknowledge and address the harms inflicted upon indigenous peoples and community of color through centuries of exploitation and oppression. Reparations offer a path towards justice and reconciliation, providing tangible support to those whose lives have been affected by colonization. By confronting the legacies of colonization and committing to reparative measures, we can work towards building a more equitable and inclusive society for all. It does not have to be black to white or white to black. Anybody who has suffered under the hands of someone else is justified to get reparations. And the people of Barbados were colonized by the British, and I believe they deserve their reparations. And justice should be served. Yeah. So that's Evans from Kenya. Thanks for watching the video. If you like what I do, subscribe to the channel. Support me on Patreon, give me super thanks, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.